Hello, I'm Tara Brabazon. I'm the Dean of Graduate Research at Flinders University, and welcome to Vlog 42, How to Write a Journal Article. This vlog this week builds on our vlog last week. You can see the whiteboard behind me. The vlog last week explored how to construct a research plan. So today we're going to build on that research plan, move the idea into a journal article. And my meta project of this vlog is to talk to you about the diversity of research articles that are available to you. There is no doubt that our supervisors, our mentors, our mates, our friends, our colleagues often try to tell us what we can't do, like don't write in this area, don't do this, don't do that. Well, what I want to present to you today is the plurality of research articles that are available to you, because academic publishing is changing radically and rapidly. So I'm going to offer some arguments for your consideration about how to write a research and journal article. And what I want to specify at the start is a journal article is a genre. It is a way of writing. And like with all genres, there are many subgenres dependent on access or audience or discipline. At its most basic, there are three types of journal article. There is the standard empirical paper, there is the essay article, and the review article. The empirical paper, of course, follows that standard structure: introduction, methods, results, discussion, conclusion, acknowledgements, and references. Pretty straightforward. Subheadings are often used in the methods and the discussion section, and occasionally the results section has some subheadings as well. But these articles are actually the easiest to write and the easiest to structure because you've already been given that template. This is where we often use the phrase the writing up of research for these standard empirical papers. You have already completed the research, you've already completed the project, and now you're simply writing it up with the components specified in each of those headings. So pretty straightforward. Essay papers are a little bit different. They have no predictable structure. They have no predictable headings. So this is quite challenging because it means before you start writing, you have to have a sense of the outline. I would advise you to write an outline, an arc of what you would like to say. So in this case, subheadings are integral to your argument. If you will, in essay papers, the subheadings are the punctuation of your argument. Review papers are also very interesting. They have flexibility in terms of how they are organised, but the review papers are very, very different depending on the discipline in which you are working. So environmental science famously, and a lot of ecology for example, their review papers are heavily quant and meta-analyses. But there's also a whole suite of review papers, like one, for example, I'm writing at the moment, whereby there's a series of brand new books that have just been released, and I've been asked to situate these new books, this new research in youth culture and youth studies, into the wider field of youth culture and youth studies. So that is a different type of meta-analysis, but a different type of review essay. So lots of different stuff exists in the review paper. So the key is always to start with the big idea that we talked about in the last vlog. So in the sciences, the hard sciences, that big idea may come from an ethics discussion or methods or a very interesting data set. In the humanities, it could come from theory or context or creative-led or practice-based research. But the most important point I wanted to give you in this vlog on how to write a journal article is one that people very rarely tell you. And if you remember, we started with our whiteboard last week to sketch out the ideas that are possible for your research. Now, what happens when you are translating those ideas on a whiteboard into your actual research? But it is, I would argue, important to be very clear about what you are not talking about. So I know this seems counterintuitive. Everybody says, what's your argument? What are you talking about? My first stage whenever I'm writing up a journal article is, okay, here's the idea. What am I not talking about in this article? So whether we're in the sciences or the humanities, I want you to be very clear about the boundaries around your research, the boundaries around the methods, the boundaries around the literature. So yes, have a thesis statement, have an argument, have a trajectory of your work, but also be very clear, right, well, this is what I'm doing in this article, and this is what I'm not doing in this article, and state it overtly. You can't be too overt when you're stating, this is what I'm not dealing with in this article. And by the way, this is great because it means you're not taking on too much material. So right from the start, you know just about what you're going to be dealing with, and therefore it allows you to say, right, well, this article's doing this work, and I'll have another article that investigates that component. And when you're doing that second article, you can cite and refer back to the first piece. So that's great. It builds a suite, it builds a portfolio of your research. So just remember, you cannot be too overt when you're discussing what you're not talking about in an article. So in the sciences, the key is always repeatability. So that's why we put so much attention on methods, on algorithms, on processes, because your research must be repeatable. That's the whole point of it. In the humanities, repeatability is not a characteristic, but innovation is. And you have to justify why this article is being written. What is your new contribution to knowledge? What new ideas are you forwarding here? So once you're clear about the parameters of your work, I want you then to focus on the importance of headings and formatting. So I know it gets frightening. I've got this idea. Where do I start with a journal article? Right. Be clear. What am I not talking about? Then put in the headings. And then you should relax, because then you're only writing 1,000 words, 1,500 words, 2,000 words under each heading, and that is more manageable. So if you're worried about the headings, there are a series of publishers like Elsevier that have actually created templates for how to write a research article. So if you put into Google a search for Elsevier research article template, up they will come. Very useful for the sciences and the harder end of the empirical social sciences, not useful at all for the humanities. Okay, so remember, think about the headings as the punctuation of your argument. They are moving your audience through your work. Now, between each heading, I need your sentences and your paragraphs to be clear and clean. Famously, I write very, very short sentences. I believe very strongly, one idea, one sentence. Short, sharp sentences, and I use very few adjectives. My point is I want every single sentence to make one idea, get one idea across. Also remember the value of topic sentences. This is so important, team. Topic sentence. A topic sentence is the first sentence of every paragraph. As the name suggests, it provides the topic into which the paragraph will expand. If your topic sentences are working well, there is one test to show that they're effective, and that is when your first draft is completed, go through your journal article and read the first sentence of every paragraph. Read the topic sentence alone of each paragraph. And if your argument and your structure is working well, reading the topic sentences will be enough to convey your argument. So it's a great meta test to see, all right, is my article holding together? If the topic sentences make sense, you're doing well. Okay, that's the spine of your analysis. So the topic sentence is significant. It explains the content of each paragraph, and the last sentence in each paragraph is also crucial. It's the outro of one idea and the movement into another one. The best of writing, I've always described, is like a waterfall. You can't see where it begins or where it ends. It's smooth. It's fluid. But what I would say to you is, once you have the outline, just start writing. So important. Don't judge yourself. Don't get all worried about, oh, can I write? I'm not writing well. Just start writing under those headings. Get the ideas down in any form you can. And please make sure you are withholding judgment at all times. The people I have the most challenge working with, and the students that I find the most challenging to work with, are the guys and gals, and we've all met them. You may be that person, that they write a sentence and then they read it again and again and again and judge the one sentence, and they end up sort of deleting it and then writing another sentence and getting all overwrought and upset about that sentence, and then they delete it, and they basically can take a whole day and they've written 3 sentences. Okay, so I want that behavior to stop. I want you to get used to getting a lot of words on a page, getting a lot of words on a screen. Don't judge, just write. So what helps me a lot is I say to myself, right, I'm going to bind up my writing via time. So I'm going to sit down and I'm going to write an idea out for an hour. So I say, right, for 1 hour, I'm not going to read back, I'm just going to write. I'm going to write my ideas down for 1 hour and then I'm going to stop. So that might help you to think about, right, well, I get so worried about my writing. Don't worry, just write, no judgment. So that's the most important part of writing a journal article, because if you're getting worried about the writing, it will never get done. So relax, enjoy it, get the ideas down in any form you can. So the other rule I have to tell you is that the best writers are actually the best editors. Nobody ever tells you that. So what I'd say is write long. Write your argument out and then come back and edit it. So write it out, write it long, then edit. So what I would say to you is the first few versions of every article that every single one of us writes is absolutely diabolical and dreadful. When I read back my first 2 or 3 drafts, I am horrified, nay, disgusted with myself. So I read it and go, oh, what was I thinking? Oh, that's terrible. That happens to everybody, guys. So the thing is, don't judge those first few drafts, just do it, improve the prose. Okay, if everybody hates their first draft, it's not you, it's everybody. Remember, you got to kiss a lot of frogs to find Prince Charming. Trust me on that. So you've got to draft a lot to create great prose. So what I tend to do, guys, is I write quickly, but I edit slowly. I edit my pieces between 30 and 50 times, and I alternate between screen and paper drafts. Very important to me, because I find different types of errors when I'm track changing on a screen or when I'm reading on paper. So what I recommend is write freely, but edit harshly. Write like you are Jack Kerouac and edit like you're E.E. Cummings. So the first 2 decisions that you will make are, what type of paper am I writing? What's the genre? Remember, empirical or review. What am I doing here? And then the appropriate sequence of headings. They're the 2 important choices. Now, what I want you to do is think about how you're going to frame your paper. So will you frame it through a contemporary event or a policy perhaps, or is it solving a problem? So is there a medical problem or an economic issue or a cultural issue that your research is addressing and perhaps solving? So if it helps you to frame your argument, what I often say to people is think about why your research matters. Could it have been written 5 years ago? Could it be written in 5 years' time? Why is it being written now? And when you answer that question, then that will provide the frame, the propulsion that will make your research work. So once your frame is established, the content has to be organised, and for empirical papers, use that standard format. And remember, be comfortable. The important stuff happens at the end. Empirical papers are loaded at the back. the results, the discussion, why it matters. The first half of the paper is simply confirming the repeatability. What are the methods? Are ethics in place? How's that gone? And the end is where the really crunchy stuff appears. For the humanities papers, the other mode of journal articles, you'll find they're more balanced. So the front part of the article talks about why we're here, why we're meant to care, why this is important, and the argument is resolved and made by the conclusion. So remember, in that conclusion, for those non-empirical papers, you really must answer the why I should care. What have we just learned here? What have I contributed to knowledge? So the key area I want you to think about when you're crafting your journal article, and again, very few people talk about this, is in your head, I need you to have a sense of who is your audience. In your head, who do you think you are writing for? And this really matters, particularly in terms of your career. So if you think you're going to be in the UK or in Aotearoa, New Zealand, think about the possible places you could work. And therefore you have to think about the research assessment and evaluation protocols in those places. So think about how this article fits into the trajectory of your career. Who will read it and how will they read it? So if you're already in work, then the key could be professional journals that are open access. That could really be enlarging your research and your audience. So that's fantastic. Go with that. Particularly for guys and gals working in public policy, open access professional journals, crucial for you. But if you're in, say, business, where impact factors are everything, then that's a completely different strategy that we need to develop for you. So you might decide, right, by the third year of my PhD, I want to be in tier 1 journals, right? But say by the first year of my PhD, I'll try and get in the third tier. Second year of the PhD, aim for the second tier. And by the end, aim for the first tier. Give yourself a plan. Who's the audience? How does this fit into my career? Always remember, every single article fits into your wider project, the wider research, your career. What are you trying to achieve? And a question for you to consider, and the research is split on this, so I will present you the argument, is whether you start with a preferred journal and you write a piece for that journal, or you write a piece up and then try and place it in a journal. Now, I have always written a piece and then I find a home for it. But there are plenty of fantastic scholars out there that say, right, well, my career requires that I get published in that journal and I will write something for them. That is absolutely fantastic, a great strategy. What I would say to you though is right now you're in a PhD program or a research master's program, so you already have the topic. So make sure that every single piece that you get published is nested in that PhD. So in some ways you already have the pieces. You'll then find the journal. But note, after your PhD, you might want to invert that strategy, and that's absolutely fine. So hold on to who you think your audience is. Who is your preferred reader? Who would you like to read it? And when you've got a sense of that person, that will impact on your selection of content, your style, your structure, and how you're justifying the presence of this research. So having an audience in your head is quite an effective, motivating strategy. The final point I want to make is about co-authorship. Now, most people in their careers write with other people. Even a lone wolf like me, I write with a lot of people around the world. And if you're underconfident, that's absolutely fine to write with somebody else and learn how to do it. So, for example, one of my favourite examples about this is a few of my former PhD students, Felicity, Leanne and Mike. Hi guys. We wanted to write a piece together on the iPodification of popular music. It was going to be the first refereed article on what we called iPodification to increase the speed of the writing and also help them, scaffold them into professional writing. There were 4 of us. each of us wrote 2,000 words, so we wrote a particular bit of the article and then I knitted them together and it was published. It took 1 week to write it. Each of us did that 2,000 words, 1 week to edit it, 1 week to send it out to publishers. So again, that can be a really motivating and exciting way of writing. But the most important issue for me is always, do not let people rip you off. Courtesy authorship is not an option. And please remember, a lot of series and types of research assessments around the world, not in Australia but in a lot of other places, really do evaluate your percentage of writing, role in the data collection, interpretation and writing. You will have to specify your percentage in each of those categories in terms of your contribution to that journal article. And then the other authors will also have to verify their contribution and sign it off. So don't think that co-authorship doesn't matter, and don't think that the percentage of the contribution doesn't matter. It is transparent, it must be transparent, and there are all sorts of systems around the world that will make you sign off the percentage of your contribution. So always remember at the start of the writing who the authors and co-authors will be, and be clear about their percentage and role in the work. So the key focus in how to write a journal article is focus on the idea. Put a boundary around it. What are you not talking about? Then be clear about the type of journal article that you're writing, empirical or not. Put the required headings in. Write under those headings. Edit harshly, edit strongly, but always remember who your audience is. Who are you writing for? Who is the reader, and why should they care? So I hope this has been a useful vlog for you, how to write a journal article. It's special, it's exciting. Even though I've published over 200 journal articles, it is still incredibly exciting for me. Whenever I get that email going, this article has been accepted, it still is a thrill. So I really understand your excitement and your motivation to get those journal articles out and through and to an audience. Because through our writing, through our research, we make a difference. As always, I wish you love, light and peace. Tea out.